Hello guys, meet again with Queen MMA. UFC is one of the promoters of MMA which is currently more popular than the sport it carries, namely MMA. Even the popularity of the UFC currently exceeds the sport of boxing, whose popularity has declined recently. However, among the many fighters with extraordinary skills that the UFC has, which of them has extraordinary fame that surpasses celebrities? Summarizing from various data, here we present the 10 most famous UFC fighters in the world. But before we continue, please press the subscribe button and activate the bell for those who haven't, so you don't miss the latest update from Queen MMA. 10. Stipe Miocic. Stipe Miocic, who is currently second in the UFC heavyweight division, is also a part-time paramedic in the fire service. Stipe Miocic is one of the fighters who has successfully defended his title for a long time, having won from Fabricio Werdum in 2016. Until finally he lost to Daniel Cormier, although he was able to win 2 of his 3 fights. But in the end, he also had to admit the prowess of the Predator, the owner of the hardest punch on earth, Francis Ngannou. Stipe Miocic is a person who has known and been active in sports since childhood. This Croatian fighter has been a baseball, wrestling and boxing athlete when he was in high school and college. As we know, the heavyweight division is filled with beasts and evil, where no one has been able to defend his title 3 times in a row. But Stipe Miocic was able to do it. Besides having set a new record in the UFC, he has also conquered beasts and giants such as Alistair Overeem Jr. dos Santos, Francis Ngannou and even Daniel Cormier. Nine. Brock Lesnar. MMA and wrestling fans must be very familiar with this one figure. Brock Lesnar is a man capable of being a heavyweight champion for both WWE and UFC. In the history of his career, Brock Lesnar was able to become the youngest WWE World Champion, as well as the youngest champion in WWE special events, namely King of the Ring and Royal Rumble. That's what made him decide to enter the world of MMA. Even though he suffered a defeat against Frank Mir when he made his debut, he was finally able to avenge his defeat in their next meeting. His career then began to rise and became a heavyweight champion in 2008. Although his career was relatively short in the UFC, he had fought against big fighters such as Randy Couture, Frank Mir, Cain Velasquez, Alistair Overeem and Mark Hunt. Apart from being a wrestler and MMA fighter in the UFC, he has also tried a career in the NFL, which made him even more famous. Although a career attempt in the NFL was classified as a failure due to an injury during trial training for the national team. Eight. BJ Penn. BJ Penn is famous as an explorer fighter because he often changes class division to another class division. BJ Penn has always been a fan of many. That's because he has put on some of the best, bloodiest and most exciting fights in UFC history, and he never backs down from a challenge. As a cruiser fighter, he has managed to win multiple championships across multiple divisions in the UFC. Maybe some fighters have done it, but BJ Penn was the first, and maybe he's a clue to the others. Even though he has only 1 win from 11 fights, or 8 consecutive losses in his last fight, BJ Penn is a much better fighter than what the records show. especially when he fought against Matt Serra, Matt Hughes, George's st-Pierre, Nick Diaz, Frankie Edgar and others. The president of the UFC, Dana White, put BJ Penn as the fighter who has made the UFC name famous and big until now. Seven. Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz were very famous in their time, but the reason why Chuck Liddell is on this list is because he was able to win the fight of their matches. Chuck Liddell was the biggest star of the UFC for a long time. Despite suffering many defeats in his last fights, he is still a character loved by many among MMA fans. Not only famous in the UFC, Chuck Liddell is also famous on social media, where he has almost 1 million followers on Instagram. Chuck Liddell is also still a very popular member of the MMA community today. Chuck Liddell's 3 best wins include against Wanderlei Silva at UFC 79, against Randy Couture at UFC 52, and against his partner Tito Ortiz at UFC 47. 6. Georges St-Pierre. George st-Pierre, or commonly abbreviated as GSP, is an MMA star who won in 2 divisions, namely welterweight and middleweight. On September 25, 2021, he was inducted into the ranks of the UFC Hall of Fame. It was one of the biggest achievements of his career in MMA. Georges st-Pierre really deserves to be in the top 3 best UFC fighter of all time, where he has suffered only 2 defeats which he has all avenged, and has 13 wins in a row. He reigned in the welterweight division for many years, briefly retiring, but eventually returning to crush Michael Bisping, and also take the middleweight title. He always wins battles, even when he takes a lot of hits and suffers injuries, so he has a lot of fans. Even though he's not fully retired, it's unlikely we'll see him in the octagon again. What made him even more famous was when he plunged into the world of film, where he had played in Hollywood films, including Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Cardinals and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. In fact, he has also become an Instagram star with more than 3 million followers. Five. Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's real name is Ronda Jean Rousey. She is an American fighter who is famous as a UFC fighter who has contributed to raising the status of female fighters in the most popular MMA in the world, UFC. Ronda Rousey made her debut in 2011 and instantly became a top fighter. Ronda Rousey's popularity is none other than her beauty, in addition to her excellent martial arts abilities. Proof of how good Ronda Rousey is being the female athlete who holds the longest-serving world bantamweight title in UFC history. Apart from being a UFC fighter and female wrestler, Ronda Rousey is also active in the world of modeling and actress. Some of the films she has acted in include Fast and Furious 7 and The Expendables 3. 4. Jon Jones. Jon Jones is currently considered the best MMA athlete in the world. It can be said that Jon Jones always dominates in every fight, and the only defeat he experienced was due to disqualification. At that time he was disqualified for an illegal elbow strike 12-6 against Matt Hamill in 2015. Even UFC president Dana White had several times negotiated with the commission to change the result of the disqualification fight to a no contest, but it didn't work until now. Despite many controversies, hit-and-run cases, and doping cases, Jones was finally able to come back as champion. Even more remarkable, Jon Jones was the first MMA athlete to be sponsored by Nike International. Jon Jones fights in the light heavyweight class, but now he moves to the heavyweight division, even though he has to be willing to leave his belt at light heavyweight. After officially switching divisions, now there are several UFC beasts ready to welcome him. These beasts are none other than Francis Ngannou and Stipe Miocic. Three. Khabib Nurmagomedov. Since fighting at UFC 229, Khabib vs. McGregor, Khabib's name is increasingly recognized by many people. In fact, some people who don't know MMA become more interested in knowing what MMA is after hearing the name of Khabib Nurmagomedov, who has defeated the notorious Conor McGregor. The names of the two of them even today are still a public discussion. The names of Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor himself have contributed to raising the name of the UFC so that it becomes very popular as it is now. Since making his debut in 2008, Khabib Nurmagomedov has gone 28 games without losing a game. Two. Anderson Silva. Despite suffering a terrible defeat in his last duel, but Anderson Silva remains one of the best in UFC history. Anderson Silva is an old generation MMA fighter from Brazil, where he started his MMA career in 1997. But he made his UFC debut in 2005. And in his second bout he won the middleweight belt by defeating Rich Franklin. The Spider always successfully defended his title from 2006 to 2012 and has defended the title in 10 fights. Anderson Silva's fighting style has a characteristic that gives color to MMA fights. This fighter with basic Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, and Taekwondo always appears dominant in the strike game. Even though he has good striking, Anderson Silva's ground fighting is no less great. Many people respect and crown Silva as the best striker fighter in MMA history. One. Conor McGregor. It is undeniable that there is no other fighter as famous and popular as Conor McGregor. Conor is no longer a champion or a double champ, but a huge superstar. Dana White, as president of the UFC, puts Conor's popularity on par with one of the icons of boxing, Mike Tyson. Conor McGregor has managed to get the biggest paycheck in pay-per-view history. Conor McGregor has reached the top. Conor McGregor is a money-making machine for the UFC. Even in his big fight against legendary boxer Floyd Mayweather Jr. While the result was not in Conor McGregor's favor, it was a bounty that seemed to please the parties involved. In the eyes of the UFC president, Conor McGregor is very special. It is because of his extraordinary popularity. Well guys, those are the 10 most famous UFC fighters in history. In your opinion, which UFC fighter is more famous than them? Share your opinion in the comments column below, and don't forget to like and share with your friends. See you in another video. Thanks for watching. See ya.